All right, here we go. OverDrive. Off and running. TSN 1050 on the TSN app. Your home smart speaker. And up on TSN for Bryan Hayes, the O-Dog, Jeff O'Neill, Jamie Noodles McLennan.
What's going on?
How we feeling? Day after Super Bowl.
When the game's over, the quarterbacks shake hands and they say, great season, excellent job. The coaches shake hands and say, great job, good try. I would like to extend a virtual hand to you and say, no. Great job, good try.
Oh, no.
I think the pro athletes at the end,
Yeah.
I mean, we had you guys up during the regular season. You weaseled your way back, and then we just stomped on you and said, get back where you belong, in the bleachers.
All right. I got to give you credit. Congratulations to O'Win Willson. Luke's going to call us here in a moment. It was a Super Bowl that will be forgotten. Let's call it what it is. It's a
Terrible game.
It was an
Terrible.
awful football game. the
Anybody
whole
that
week.
had the idea of turning it off after the half, you weren't wrong.
No, it was over. And the thing that keeps you around is 28-3.
Yep.
Yes.
4-1 with 11 minutes to go.
But I never got that sense.
No,
yesterday.
it never felt that way. And I was trying to put myself in that position at halftime. It's 24-0 Eagles. Philly's dominating. Mahomes is running for his life, and he looks awful. And I was trying to remember the feeling when it was 28-3 for the Falcons. And I'm like, I guess this is what it felt like. Because I'm sure at that point we all thought it was over. Of course we did. When it was 28-3, no one thought Tom Brady and the Patriots could possibly win that game. But out of respect to Mahomes and Andy Reid and the greatness of the Chiefs, I tried to get there. I tried to find something where I'm like, you know what? They get the ball to start the second half. Maybe they march down the field. Then there's a turnover. It's 24-14 all of a sudden. Okay, we're alive. And I couldn't do it. I couldn't do it at the half. I certainly couldn't do it once the second half began. Credit the Eagles. They were outstanding, and that will be remembered forever, and they deserve that. I'm not trying to put down anything that the Philadelphia Eagles did. They had an unbelievable season, great playoff, and they demolished the Chiefs last night. But the game, it was an awful game. The build-up wasn't great. We talked about it all week.
Yeah.
We talk when it's the same teams every year and the same coaches and same quarterbacks, and it just happened. It was just a Super Bowl that happened. It was a formality last night. Crazy to watch.
I'll ask both of you, and then I'm going to ask Luke as well. Was it so much that Philly was unbelievable, or that the Chiefs were bad, or a combination of both?
I think a combination of both. That's how I would answer
You said
it.
Mahomes was terrible, Hayes.
I thought he was awful. Oh,
Dude, I know,
awful.
but they literally swarmed him and beat the crap out of him, and they had, that is the most impressive defensive game I've ever seen by anyone. Ravens D core that won the Super Bowl, that was just, I don't know, that was a manhandling I've never seen in that league.
You're right, though. They swarmed him, but that pick six, who was he throwing to?
Well, he made some throws. I'm sorry, if you're going to be considered the greatest of all time, and he's in that conversation still, regardless of what happened last night, he's still the best player in the world. None of that changed last night. But you cannot make the throws he made. He made some awful throws, awful decisions. I thought he had happy feet. And, yes, the Eagles' defensive line was dominant. They didn't blitz once last night. Not one blitz. Everything was just them controlling the line of scrimmage, and it was unbelievable. And the Eagles were the better team top to bottom. They deserved to win undoubtedly. But that was not Rex Grossman, with a great run game and a great defense that, he became Rex Grossman. It's Patrick Mahomes. He had 24 yards and threw 2 picks in the first half. Dude, he was horrendous last night. I thought he was awful. And that's what stood out to me. And it probably speaks to the greatness of him that it always still revolves around him. But he really struggled. And, yes, Philly created a lot of that, but he never did anything to change the pace, Noodles.
Yeah,
nothing. There was nothing that changed.
That's what I was so.
Point.
That's what I was so concerned. Not concerned, but I wanted to hear what you guys had to say about it. Was it just that Philly was that dominant, or he just looked like he had an off night and couldn't get it together, and was trying obviously, but he could not get it together.
Combination of both, clearly.
Yeah.
And credit where it's due. But when he wins, it's all about Mahomes all the time. I think when he loses, it's got to be some of it on his plate as well. All right. Let's head down to New Orleans. I believe our boy Luke is through security, waiting to fly home.
what the O'Win Willson is cooking.
He's been very gracious in victory. He's been very quiet. I've been surprised. I haven't heard from him in 24 hours. I can't believe it. There he is, Luke Willson. Congratulations. Well played. Well played.
Okay, first and foremost, where's the Milli Vanilli at now, boys?
Oh, it's coming.
Where's
It'll be back in the regular season. You better believe it.
The old
It'll be back
Milli
in the regular
Vanilli
season.
wasn't played today, was it, Partsy? And I loved You know what, Parts? Before you get into the details of the game, I just had to scroll back into our text chain and find that little text. Ballers no ball hashtag, because on the 22nd of December, I floated it to you, Parts, and I said, I think the Eagles can win it all, and you said 1,000%, Partsy. That's what ballers do. Thanks for being my partner all year long.
And that's facts. That's facts. And Parks, I love you, man. I gotta give credit where credit's due. I started the week on Kansas City. I said that on Jay on Wednesday night. And all of a sudden, I'm like sitting here, and it might have been the stench in New Orleans, it might have been the heat, and I'm looking at this thing, I'm like, I'm kind of leaning Philly. You know what really pushed me over the edge was the text you sent me when you said, dude, you might think I'm crazy, but I'm going Philly. That was the straw that broke the camel's back. We went Philly. We destroyed the bot farm. We destroyed the frauds. Like I said, I saw the tweet. People are in the New Orleans airport screaming, say it loud, say it proud. Shout out to scumbag Doughty. So, Hayes is a fraud. All is right in the world again. We smoked the Geppetto bot farms. We are the champions. Partsy, I love you. Can't wait to run it back again next year. We're going to sweep. We're going to sweep.
Okay.
I got to be honest, though. I was concerned early on because in the group chat there was some dissension as to who even won the first. What was that first one?
Coin toss.
The coin toss.
Tails for down 2 hashtag, and that was us. We picked up the coin toss.
And Luke is like, "Yep, we got it." I'm like, now we've got
I've never been
dissension.
so berated before. When I picked heads, everyone was like, "Come on, man, nobody." And I'm like, "It's one or the other." Is
Right.
heads that bad of a selection?
Evidently, it was.
No,
I mean,
it was. It was funny. I don't know why. I'm a big tails never fails guy, and for some reason, this was the strangest moment of the week for me. When tails hit, I was in the auxiliary press box celebrating that we're up 4, and getting the text to be like, "Hey, no, you guys are on heads." I don't know where I was when we did that segment, but clearly I wasn't paying attention to the coin toss. I legitimately thought we were on tails.
Well, it started so promising for Al's brother and myself, and then eventually it got away from us. But in the end, you were in the building, so take us inside the building. It's a whirlwind. You've played 2 of them. Now you've been in the building as media multiple times. Absolute blowout. Like at any point, did you think Kansas City had a chance to get back in the game? And if so, when did that come to an end that you realized, okay, this is over and Philly's just going to demolish them and this is going to be a blowout?
The only moment, sometimes when you have a good coaching staff like Kansas City does, and I always had a terrible day, but it's 24-0 at the half. KC gets the ball. They start to drive, and I'm looking up and I'm saying, okay, it's very tough, but if they go down here and get a 2-point conversion, you're now sitting at a 16-point deficit. You get a stop. We're at least only 2 possessions with the 2-pointers away back into it. Still a very tough task. But when they got stopped on that first drive and then Philly ended up adding to this lead, I'm like, this bad boy's over. And it wasn't close. Like you said it, from the very first snap, it was not close. I do think, and I'll stand on this, I think that Kansas City's defense played a little better than the score shows. And part of the reason the score got so high is when you're playing Philadelphia. Like the reality is when your offense and your quarterback has a QBR of 10 at the half, and I think they had 14 total yards throwing or something like that, you're not, like you can't let Saquon Barkley and Jalen Hurts and A.J. Brown and Devontae Smith get 70 plays in a game. Like it's just a matter of time. So I was shocked, specifically with how Mahomes played, but it was a lot more Philly fans than KC. From right off the jump, Philly absolutely dominated this game. They kicked them in the teeth.
Partsy, it kind of made me think of hockey a little bit because I think it was a couple years ago where one of us asked you, it might have been me, like something that's common in winning football throughout the NFL during the playoffs. and you said everybody talks about receivers and quarterbacks, but you brought up physicality on the line, like both offense and defense. And it's like, that's what it was last night. And you must laugh at all these people that think they can reinvent the game. And sometimes there's the greatest show on turf that does it differently, and it's flash and dash. But that was physicality at its finest. And why anybody would ever deviate from that must be laughable.
Laughable. And that's how you win ball games. And what I loved about last night, despite the fact that we won and things were right there, I do feel like yesterday was a very, very stark reminder to all football coaches, people, personnel, that you can have stars, but the hogs in the trenches are your easiest way to win. You know, and guys that play as a team are your easiest way to win. I look at this Philly defense, and it's like, okay, Zach Bond coming into the season was not considered to be the best middle linebacker in the league. He comes in here, plays in Vic Fangio's system, absolutely balled out all year, was the Defensive Player of the Year candidate. Last night, I think he had 7 total tackles, a pick, and a QB hit. Jalen Carter was supposed to be the star of this defense. He had 2 quarterback hits, did not have a tackle. You heard that right. After the defensive performance, and I'm not saying Jalen didn't play well because they were doubling him all night. Mm-hmm. But it's like, okay, if you're going to do this to Jalen, you had, I think, Williams, the other D tackle, had 2 sacks. Jordan Davis had a sack in there. Sweat had 2.5. I mean, it just was across the board. Cooper DeJean, a rookie, comes in with a pick 6. The Great White Hope. I mean, it's a white cornerback scoring a touchdown in the Super Bowl. I don't think I would have ever said that saying in my life. Quinyon Mitchell had 3 tackles playing DB. Like, you talk about physicality, you could feel it in the building parts. And I'm not just saying that for OverDrive. It was like the moment that ball was kicked out, you had a team that was coming downhill, possessed, ready to play smash mouth football, and a team that was not trying to do that. You know, for whatever reason, I don't know what happened to Kansas City, but they were not ready for that intensity, and you clearly showed.
With Luke Willson, who's down in New Orleans, looking back on the Super Bowl last night, and that became very clear. Kansas City looked completely unprepared. They look shell-shocked. You're right. They didn't look like they were up for the fight. And I don't know if that's fatigue. I don't know if it's arrogance. I'm not sure what it was. But when we talk about this team, it always begins with a conversation around Mahomes. And I said what I said off the top. Everything you just said about Philly is accurate. Everything you just said. And their front 4, their front 7 was electric last night. Obviously, they put so much pressure on him. It allowed the backs to do what they did. But this is not your average quarterback. This is Patrick Mahomes, who has put forth the greatest, first 6-7 year run in anyone's career, and he's chasing down Brady. I mean, we could go on and on and on about the GOAT debates. I thought the way he looked in the first half, and the fourth quarter is completely irrelevant what he did, and the stats, all the padding of stats and all that, it's completely irrelevant. I thought he looked jittery. I thought he had happy feet. I thought he made some throws that I've never thought he would even look towards making. He looked awful, in my opinion. What do you make?
Terrible.
Of it? Yeah. So go ahead.
Yes.
Give me your synopsis of Mahomes and what makes sense here.
So there's a couple things, and the onus starts with him, and you nailed it. Some of those throws you simply cannot make. You cannot have that in a game like that. And I thought part of it was he was pressing a bit, and he was getting rattled because he got hit so much early, and guys were pressing on him. But the next thing, sorry, just give me one sec. Yes, my bad, boys. I'm at the airport here.
All good.
So the next thing I would say is that scheme-wise, they're just not there in the sense of, like, they didn't try to run the ball. So one of the things that was really tough for Mahomes is, even though they don't have a great run game, an efficient run game, they have at least committed to trying to run the football to keep defenses honest. I was shocked because I think everyone thought Philly had a better team, but we all said, hey, Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo is going to have better X's and O's, and that could be the difference. They simply did not have a good game plan. So that's partially what I would also attribute Mahomes playing so poorly. To go out against this defensive line and this number one defense in the secondary, like I mentioned, Bond, all those guys, and say, from the gun, our first 15 is going to, I believe they had 1 rush play and it went for 2 yards. We're just going to be one-dimensional out front. It's a very, very strange thing to do. And I get that when you're not an efficient run game, you want to get away from it. But when you're playing it's called the inner chess game as a player, as a D lineman, and you come up and you're like, these boys are not going to run the football, everything falls apart. There was a sack Mahomes took where 3 guys got out on a route, and it was a fake play action, but they hadn't ran the ball at all. Nobody bites in the play action. They kept 7 guys in the block, and they still took a sack. And it's like, hey, Mahomes got to get the ball out. And you're looking at it, it's like you send 3 guys down the field. They're all hemmed up. What do you want the guy to do? And you technically got 8 guys in the backfield, and you're taking a sack still. 7, you're jammed. Mm-hmm. So that's where I was like, not only did Mahomes play poorly, the whatever game plan they had, 2 weeks of Andy Reid, it did not work out well, and it was just a calamity of errors across the board that resulted in an absolute shellacking.
Yeah, that's it. We'll get you out of here with a look ahead to the next season. Better chance of making the Super Bowl next year, Kansas City or Philly?
I'll go with Philly still, but I think both of them have a legit shot. Philly just because the conference is weaker, but I do think Kansas City, listen, not having Rashee Wright's a huge ordeal. Him getting hurt, huge ordeal. But I do believe that both these, we could potentially see a mismatch. I look at, I think Detroit will be very, very stout next year, but you wonder life after Ben Johnson and how healthy will they be? Will the defense be a lot better? I don't know. You look at the Rams, the Rams you look at Philly's playoff run here. Smoke Green Bay. Mm-hmm. The Rams went down and almost beat them in that snow game. Absolutely annihilated the Commanders and then annihilated Kansas City. So, the Rams have cut Cooper Kupp. What's going to happen during the offseason, I don't know. But you got to think Philly is going to be a heavy, heavy favorite to run this thing back and get back to the Super Bowl.
All right, buddy. Safe travels. Next time you're on, I'll have the hats for you, and Al's brother and I will be in here, and we'll say a few words. We'll talk more about the regular season and the greatness of our run, but a couple words for you guys as well.
Hey, I love it. No, what happened to the quote? What happened? We got to read with Al's brother.
Al's brother's not available.
Yeah, we'll get him.
Guy.
Tell Doogie I'm coming on tomorrow with Al's brother. Let's get right here.
All right, we'll right the ship. Safe travels.
All right.
There's
see you guys.
Luke Willson joining us from, it sounds like, what is he, boarding the plane, literally right now?
In the cockpit right now.
You talked about who's going back to that game next year. You look at that Philly team, it's like, did they open up something where they have a belief in a knowing now? Because I do this every time someone wins a championship. I'm like, I did it with the Florida Panthers, the Colorado Avalanche, the KC Chiefs. I'm like, who the hell's going to beat that team next year?
Yeah.
Yeah. Well,
that was an ass whooping, man.
They deserve that, right? You look at it, they started the season 2-2. Then they have.
If a team, Hayes, deserved that comment, who the hell's going to beat them next year? It's that performance
last night. They
have been
so dominant. Like Luke just said, they kind of showed us. They beat up on Green Bay, especially defensively. Like Jordan Love had no chance.
Right.
No chance. They destroyed Washington in the championship game. Destroyed them. Put up 55 points. And then they go in there and completely dismantle Andy Reid, Steve Spagnuolo, Patrick Mahomes, and the Chiefs. They made them look like a Cinderella team that finally ran out of gas.
Do you ever ask the question, you're a Green Bay fan, a lot of people in the area are Buffalo fans, do you ever say to yourself, KC beat you and they just got mangled? Do you ever think about how far teams like Green Bay and Buffalo might actually be if KC got mangled like that?
That's the
Or is it a one-off?
Yeah,
or is it a one-off? Isn't it somewhere in the middle? Mahomes was terrible last night. He's not going to be terrible every game. Dominant players find a way to fight through. Philly had a night, and I think Mahomes and Kelsey and all them, I think they looked fatigued. To me, they looked like they not prepared. I don't know what the hell they were doing. It was really weird.
Yeah,
Showed up, they were going to win. I don't know.
It's possible. It took me, what are they playing this season? 256 games or something. I said before the season started, I don't think Kansas City can win a three-peat because I think history will get them. No one's ever done it before because it's so hard to do it. It's so hard to stay on the ball every single game. We just saw the Tampa Bay Lightning go through it, and then they got to the final, and Vegas just said, "You're out." Yeah. We can't do it. We did everything we could to get here, and we're done. And Kansas City, I don't know if it was game planning. I don't know if that's a cop-out because it's taking away from the greatness of the Eagles. But it kind of looked like that with Kansas City. Like they were playing with fire all year, barely beating teams, and then they finally got clipped, and they're like, man, like now we can breathe. It's almost like they're relieved in a way. It's like, all right, the three-peat thing's over. It's done. But now they got to reset. And I think if your team's in the NFC, like Luke said, I'm scared of Philly. Kansas City's got a fork in the road now. What do they do? Right. Are they motivated? Do they reset? Do they load back up? Or do they go into, a couple years here where maybe they take some losses, and there's some turnover. Like Tom Brady made it very clear. He said it. He lived it. He went 10 years between his third and fourth Super Bowl win. 10 years.
Yeah.
Like he won 3 in his first 4, and then all of a sudden he lost in 2007. He lost in 2011 to the Giants. 10 years. Now, I'm not saying that will happen with Mahomes, and having Mahomes involved as your quarterback is going to make you a relevant team and a good team as long as he's healthy, I think, the rest of his career. But it's not a guarantee this guy is just going to win. They're going to win every year. It's not the way sports ever works.
I'll tell you what's not a guarantee, who's going to play for a long time. That Travis Kelce looked defeated last night. It almost looked like there's a chance that he might be saying check please fairly soon. Yeah. I don't know. He didn't he have that look? Like if you just study kind of people, it was like, I don't know, man.
What?
And if you look at his body of work all year, did he ever have one of those games where you were like, that's Travis Kelce football, man? I don't think really. I saw that all year,
Not really. Like maybe in the playoffs, like that first game against Houston, I think. But you're right. And someone had a great tweet because he wore like that crazy red suit, and he had the beard and the hair and the glasses.
Yeah.
And they're like, imagine having to put that on after a loss.
Yeah, exactly.
Put that back on.
Clown
and
outfit.
walk
exactly.
out. And you're like, dude, that
just like
that year you took a gamble, you took a flyer, and you're like, this will look cool if I win.
If you win, somebody says, man, you look so butter right now. And if you lose, someone says, what the hell did you wear that?
Well, it's sitting there in your stall. It's sitting in your stall when you have to get dressed to walk out, and you're like, cameras are going to be on me. And I'm walking out after just getting rinsed.
I have to put this suit back on.
Dude, you just go to the trainers and say, guys,
give me a tracksuit
in a bag. Give me a tracksuit. I'm out of here.
Leave it in New Orleans, man.
What about the happiest guy in the building you think was Tommy Brady?
It might have been Tom Brady.
And his watch?
I think, dude, that watch was absurd. How a Fox
$800,000 watch.
$600,000 is what I saw. $800,000 American. How a Fox? Like, obviously, this guy.
American.
Of course, it's American, but maybe it's Canadian. I don't know. Maybe he got it at Yorkdale. They got some crazy stores. I get it. He's got full of time. You talk about a guy with power. A guy like I can't imagine there's many, executive assistants pulling Tom aside and trying to comb over his plan. But to me, that watch was absurd.
Dude, that watch was a flex because it stood out. And, watch people. Like, they looked at it and said, that thing's... I didn't. I just knew that it looked extraordinary. People that know watches looked at that watch and said, that guy's wearing $1 million watch.
You could tell it was an absurd amount of money. But to me, it just didn't sit right. It's like, why are you wearing that thing?
Yeah, you can rip off a Rolex Daytona and you'll look just as cool.
All class.
I thought he was pretty good yesterday. I'm not going to lie. The one thing I think that he needs to steer clear from, it's just an observation. I don't think the guy's funny. He tried to be funny a couple of times, and I literally, if he was beside me, I would say, don't try to be funny. You're not funny.
Yeah, he's not. He
had these weird jokes to Burkhardt, and it was kind of like, nah. And
I don't think he is a funny guy.
I don't either, man. And if you're not, the worst thing is someone that's not funny, they're trying to be funny, and it doesn't fly, man.
No.
It does not fly.
No, you're right. And that was always my thing about him is like he doesn't scream personality to me. Right. He's obviously a presence. He's a very smart guy. He knows football well. I thought he did as well as he could last night considering the circumstances.
Yeah, it was story time after this. Like
that's what we talked about last week. We're like, if this is a blowout one way or the other, it's a nightmare if you're in the booth.
Yes. Yeah, you got to go podcast. That's what you do. You got to talk big picture. Look into the future, what's going wrong. And to me, you can't talk about individual plays and break them down because it's a mess. You can't just kick the guys in the junk over and over again. You got to go big picture. That's tough when you're calling a game and it's a blowout either way.
It's very tough. And you got to listen, he's been in those situations before, I guess. I'm sure on both sides, not really in the Super Bowl. I mean, he's never been blown out. That's the other thing. Everyone's comparing and contrasting Mahomes and Brady. Mahomes has been blown out twice and looked bad in 2 games. Brady's never been blown out. In the 3 losses he had, it was like a miracle on the other side, right? Philly special and Eli throwing balls up, and it's like, there's the watch. Like, that's just a crazy-looking watch, dude. Like, I don't know, man. If you're watching on TSN4, for me, it just seems so unnecessary to watch.
It was a flex, man. It was a flex, though.
But why does he have to flex? The guy's won 7 Super Bowls. He's the greatest quarterback
Tom Brady,
of all
and he
time.
looks like a model.
I think John Madden would wear that. John Madden would have his tie around his forehead, yelling about football.
Spaghetti sauce on his
I
cheek.
thought, to me, okay, you're right. Maybe it's not a flex because a flex would be wearing your ring, maybe 1 or 2 Super Bowl rings.
You're right.
Like, that's a flex where you've got the mic in your hand and there's 2 rings or 1 ring, like one ring where you've beaten, done something. Like,
he had the Tampa ring where he beat Mahomes in the Super Bowl.
Exactly. That's a flex.
That would have been a flex. Yes,
I'll tell you one
correct.
thing. I felt old during the halftime show.
Oh, that was terrible. I don't know what was going on there.
Look, you know what I'll give the guy? I think it was, and I heard this morning on CP24.
I'll take Paul McCartney any day.
You can play to the masses. You can entertain to the masses like Paul McCartney, or you can go to your own, like, micro
genre, like a different genre.
Yes, like your own fan base, and they deeply knew what all that stuff represented.
Yeah.
And they all loved it. But for the average Joe Blow, I knew I was getting old. When that woman came out, everyone was like, ooh, and I'm like, I don't even know who that is. That's how old I am. I'm like, I don't know who that is, man.
Yeah. I didn't know any of the songs. I'm not hip. I'm not up to date. I get it. But I understand what you're saying, and you're 100% correct. If you go with like rap or country or heavy metal, like the people that love the music and love that particular artist are going to say it's the greatest thing ever. And if you're a Kendrick Lamar fan, you're like, that was amazing. I love, of course, he's your guy. You love it.
Yep.
But the average person, and that's what the Super Bowl is generally about, is looking for someone who's been around forever, that's poppy, that dances and does wardrobe changes. Like that's ultimately kind of what you're looking for. And it's got to be a Beyonce or a Bruno Mars or a Timberlake or a Rihanna or something where you're like, yeah, it's pop star. It doesn't really mean anything. And there's no, like the messaging. I'm trying to keep up. I'm like, oh, that meant something about Drake. I'm like, what the hell does that matter? I don't care about any of that stuff.
Yeah.
Like just play something that's going to go
something
viral and I can
flashed
say,
by
that
me
was
and
kind
I
of cool.
like, that girl really looks like Serena Williams.
It was.
That's not. Yeah, I know.
I thought the same thing. I was like,
and I was like, it's
can't
probably
be her.
not. It's one of the dancers that has the same hairstyle. And I'm
Yeah.
like, nah. Then I woke up and it was like that was planted there, and she was doing a crip
Something
walk.
about
and
Drake,
I'm just,
and that's what I'm saying. I'm like,
It
how
just-
are we supposed to keep up with all this kind of stuff?
No.
Well,
Like,
you're
just-
right. We're older and all of that,
and
but
we
the
are
thing
completely
is
out
too,
of touch with all of it. I
but
understand.
I didn't like it because you're right. I don't know the music and all that. I respect it. I respect artists and all that, but I don't know. I just want to watch it. I don't need a political message. I don't need these, infighting between Drake and this guy. I couldn't name 5 of their songs, but at the end of the day, these are highly paid performers. Apparently, it was an amazing perforance from this
If
guy.
you're a fan of Kendrick
him, but
Lamar, like
I didn't
anything
like
else.
it.
And
It missed
I didn't
with
think it was
me.
political. I didn't pick up on any. If anything,
Well,
it was like uber American and pro.
Well, I read a little different thing. Like there is some like stuff behind the scenes. Like you said that. Yeah, but again, I don't care. At the end of the day, I want to be able to watch. And I think it was one of the lowest rated viewed halftime shows. Like they had the top 10, and people are like, "What the hell is this?" Turned it off. Like that's
ultimately, I think that's probably where it's going to land. And I didn't think there was. It's always going to be big. There's always going to be a huge production value and all that kind of stuff. That's the Super Bowl. That's what you'd expect. But if you were to rank the last 20, and there's been some duds, I can't say that one last night would be anywhere close to my top 10.
Yeah.
But you move on, and it kind of was fitting with the whole game because the game wasn't great. That's another thing. It was a blowout, and you're like, you need something to really get going here in the halftime,
right?
And it just didn't happen. And then again, we said it all week. New Orleans, the whole build-up, it was stale. It was just and it wasn't a great playoff run for the NFL.
Right.
Wild card weekend wasn't good. There were a couple of good games. The Bills-Ravens was great. Bills-Chiefs was great. Washington-Detroit was a pretty good game. Bucks-Washington was okay, wild card. But there were a lot of blowouts, a lot of games that just weren't overly compelling. And that's how we kind of put a bow on the season. Dan Patrick will join us in half an hour. Chris Johnston coming up. He's in Montreal. The Four Nations, everyone's coming together out in Montreal. So we have some news from that. We'll look back on the Leaf weekend. They lost on Saturday night. They've hit the break here for 2 weeks. And we got Luka making his debut tonight and a couple of news dumps during the Super Bowl, in and around the Super Bowl, that we will touch on as well. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.
Drive continues, powered by FanDuel, bringing you everything from the opening line to the final score. Dan Patrick in about a half an hour. Chris Johnston coming up from the Four Nations face-off in about an hour and a half. And I will say, it's exciting to see all these players coming together.
Yeah, it does.
Cool. It looks really cool. Like I saw TSN did a great job. They tweeted something out a couple hours ago, just a little snapshot where the camera had isolated McDavid talking with McKinnon, and then Sid comes into focus, and then McCarr rolls in, and it's like just the four of them are kind of circling each other and talking about who knows what they're talking about. And I think the jerseys look awesome. Like, it's practice gear, but the hats look cool. Like, everything about it has got me feeling, excited. And I want to believe in this tournament, but this is what we've been lacking, man. Like, this is what we're talking about. There's McKinnon out there with Stone.
All you have to do to believe in the tournament is Sid showing up there.
That's big. That is very significant that he's playing through whatever he's playing through, and he said he's good to go. I'll throw Drew Doughty into that too, man. Drew Doughty, he is big time. We were talking about the halftime show, and if some Canadians will tune in. It's a weird analogy, but it's like, all right, Travis Sanheim, do I know him? Okay. Oh, right. Paroyko, where's he from? Everyone knows Drew Doughty. Everybody.
Right.
Everybody knows Drew Doughty. Everyone knows Sid, and they're throwbacks, and they've been around forever, and they've done it all. And Doughty had a gruesome injury. He's come back. He's played 4 or 5 games, and he's like, I'm in, man. I'm flying in, and I'm playing.
Did you hear his interview?
No.
Like, everyone was kind of professional, but they were like, how did you get here? And he's like, well, I've been off a bunch, and I've been working my balls off. Do we have?
I don't know if we have that one. I have this clip set up where he's talking about getting the call and how excited and proud he was. I don't know. I can't guarantee that clip is in it. Let's hear from Drew Doughty earlier this afternoon.
It meant the world to me. Always want to play for Team Canada. Always love honoring the country, but didn't know if I had a chance or not. And worked my balls off in the summer to hopefully try to make it. Got hurt for half the season, and then worked my way back to hopefully get on it. And when I got that call, I was on the team. I was probably the best day I've had in a lot of months. I was just super excited, and I'll do whatever role they need me to play.
Yeah. This guy's Ricky Vaughn, and he's representing Canada.
He is.
Like, he looks like they picked him up in a truck stop on their way to Montreal, and he said, let me throw my bag in the back, and let's go play.
Awesome.
I told Cooper, when you guys wheel through Kingston, I'll be at the Petro on the side of the 401.
Yeah.
Grab me.
Come grab me.
100%.
He's such a beauty, Drew Doughty. And it's cool, man. And all of a sudden, we spend years talking about what's the team going to look like and what are the lines going to look like. And I'll tell you what, there they are up on TSN 4. It's a huge honor Mitch Marner has been bestowed with here in day one because he's on a line with Sam Reinhart and Connor McDavid. And if you get the McDavid line, that comes with pressure, comes with expectation. But that's, John Cooper and Hockey Canada saying, Mitch, we think you can do it, man. Like, this is a big, big moment for him. It's a big moment for McDavid, all of them. And I'm quite curious to see how he handles it. I think he'll handle it well because he plays with Matthews and/or Tavares every shift of his career.
Well, it's going to be an interesting watch, Hayes, not just because he's got the call to play with Connor McDavid, but let's not hide from the fact that there's an underlying reason why everybody will be paying attention to him when the pressure's on. Mm-hmm. It's because in the past, him and his Maple Leaf teammates haven't found the recipe to get it done. So there's been Auston Matthews there all the time. Why is this so different with Connor McDavid? So let's see how he plays.
Well, you have to think, though, guys, too, that probably I would think Leaf fans would be happy for this because they are going to play on the biggest stage. And if they have some success, maybe they can bring that back into how they would play in their own individual performances in the playoffs for their own team. Like if you have a little taste of success, know what it's like, or around guys.
I know, Noodles,
who
but
have done that.
and this is not me. There will also be the pessimistic view saying they didn't perform in the playoffs in the Stanley Cup, so why would they all of a sudden stand out in this event?
Well,
that's the pessimism.
You're right.
That's not my view. I'm going to watch it. I have to go there and watch the game live, but I'm just excited to watch the hockey because you don't see these guys together, and it's awesome to watch. I'll be like a kid at morning skate.
Well, it'll be cool.
Guys buzzing
I
around.
guess
cool.
my retort to that, is you're right. But like on an individual team, this is the best of the best that Canada has to offer. So, it's Marner and McDavid and that. Like this, the third line doesn't have Holmberg on it. Like it doesn't, like your individual team. There's a drop off in that. There's no drop off on these teams, especially the U.S. and Canada. Like that's as deep as deep can come. I think the Finnish team might be in one a little bit because they've had so many injuries. And
yeah, but can I have a counter to a counter?
Sure, absolutely.
Holmberg doesn't go out on the ice with Mitch Marner ever.
No, what I'm saying is Mitch Marner is relying on other players on his own team to have success as well in the playoffs too. What he's playing on an all-star team. So if that all-star team gets propped up and they win, he's a part of a winning situation.
I guess what you're saying is in that Canadian locker room, they're not looking up saying, "Hey, Mitch, you make $11 million. You better be good this series."
That's exactly what sticks out.
They're all good.
I think let's face it, if we were to do a draft, and maybe we do this leading up to Wednesday, of the players that Canada is relying on to have a great tournament, Mitch is probably not he's definitely not in the top 5. He may not be in the top 10. Let's be clear here. And with the Leafs, he's in the top 3 or 4.
Right.
Always.
Exactly.
2.
And, yeah, he might be in the top 2. And maybe you take goaltending out of it because that goes without saying for every team. If you have bad goaltending, you're dead. If you have great goaltending, you're alive. That goes without saying. But Mitch, if that line cooks, it's because McDavid's doing what he's doing and Mitch has got to join in. It's the other guys in the tournament that have more pressure. Like Matthews is the captain of the American team, and he's expected to bring it. And I would say, Willie, you look at Sweden, Nylander has been maybe, I think, probably their best player over the last couple of years in terms of production, in terms of what he's done as a Swede at the NHL level. Now he's bringing it to this team. So there's just different pressure, different element, different expectations on all of them. Where again, when the other flip side to a reaction will be, and this will come, one of them will win. One of those 3 teams, I think it'll be Sweden, the U.S., or Canada. I don't think Finland will. We'll see, but probably one of those 3. And if one of them, Marner, Matthews, Nylander, have an unbelievable tournament, best player, lead them to a win, what'll happen is people say, well, why didn't you do that when you were with the Leafs? And
damn straight.
And that's,
right.
You can't control that. They got to go out and hopefully do both, right? Have a great little tournament here and then carry it over and bring it in the spring. But you're always risking that as well. Like, why isn't that level of protection available come playoff time? And, in the end, they're all there. They're all healthy. They might be banged up a little bit in some ways. Other guys have decided that they can't go, right? And they're injured or whatever. But for the most part, I think if you're the NHL, the PA, and fans of this tournament and hoping for a good tournament, you got pretty much everything you could ask for.
I got to tell you guys, I think those other 2 teams are totally being looked over, man. I went through their rosters today.
Yeah.
They're damn good teams. Like, they're damn good players. And to just say that this – and the focus, because we're in Canada, is Canada-USA. But I'll tell you what, that Sweden team, there's a bunch of good hockey players on that team. And that 100%. Finland team's no joke either.
No.
Their number 1 centerman won the Stanley Cup last year and was a massive part of it. There's some really good players on that team. Goaltending is going to be massive.
Well, that's still what sticks out, Noodles, when I look at the Canadian goaltending. It just looks weird on paper. I'm sorry. It's Binnington, Hill, and Montembeault. And since they announced the team, the 3 of them, their stats have not been very good.
The best Canadian's been Logan Thompson.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And Kemper's numbers have been okay. And that's selective, and you had to pick a team, and you picked the team. But Thompson's numbers have been great.
Do you guys think that if they had the option to kind of pick one randomly right before the tournament based on performance, they would have said, one of you 3 are out and Logan Thompson, you're in?
Yes.
I could see that. I mean, if you had said, hey, we got one move to make, I think it's Montembeault for Thompson.
Yes.
That's what it is for me.
For sure.
Man, that'd be a kick in the pills if you said to a guy.
Well, local, he's in Montreal. They're playing in Montreal.
Well, the Habs fans are probably looking forward to the break. Have you seen them coming down the stretch here? Like they've completely blown up their season here the last 2 weeks. But Montembeault hasn't been great. Dolbish is coming back to earth. There's different reasons for that. But yes, I think Thompson, if you could put him in, you would.
Right.
You absolutely would. And he probably starts. You probably not only put him in, you're now playing. Like you're the guy, and you're he's been better than everyone else.
Dude, you're not like I know. It's it's crazy to think that the guy you'd probably want starting is not even there.
Not even on the team.
I think in a vacuum, yes, but Binnington, I think they're comfortable with him. Like he's won. I think there's a history there. Like Doug Armstrong knows him. Like I think they would be fine with it. It comes down to let's show me what we're going to have this conversation after game 1, game 2, you name it. If after 2 games it doesn't look good and they've had to switch out or, hey, I don't know who's playing, we're not sure who's playing tonight, then you're in one. Then you're going, why didn't you? You play the old what if or why didn't you? But I do want to afford them the opportunity to play and see if they can pull their weight as goaltenders for Canada.
They have to. I mean, that's the expectation. You're playing for Canada, right? The expectation's as high as it could ever be in any sport around the world. Like, the expectation is you win and you play well. And you compare it to the American goaltenders and even, Sweden and, Finland's got 1 or 2 guys that you'd pick off. And it's a weird cycle right now. But it is a big opportunity for all you need is one guy to play well. Right, you need one guy to just play well. Not great, not stand on your head, not steal anything. Just play well and give us a chance here.
They don't have to win it for you, but they can't lose it for
Exactly.
you. That's the difference. That's the difference for me.
Yeah, and I think with the other teams are good, like you said, but there's a better chance that those goalies are going to be tested. Like the Americans are flying in a third period and they dump 20 shots on net, and the guy's going to have to be on his toes. Right. Canada, the same thing. But this is the beauty of bringing the best on best together, and it's long overdue, and it is got a very different feeling than if we were hitting the All-Star break. I think that goes without saying. Dan Patrick in about 20 minutes on what he saw out of Kansas City and Philly last night, and the Eagles winning the Super Bowl, who he thinks has a better chance of continuing this into next year. And again, we'll continue to look ahead to the Four Nations. We've got Chris Johnston coming up today. We'll look back on the Leaf game over the weekend. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4. All right, Dan Patrick in about 15 minutes. Luka Doncic will make his debut for the Lakers tonight. Seems like that might have been, I'm not a conspiracy theory guy, but maybe the NBA said just wait until the Super Bowl's over and then start. Like it was word he may play on Saturday. I think they were at home against Indiana. Ended up not playing. Super Bowl Saturday that weekend. Does it get enough coverage? I could see the NBA being like, just wait until it's done and then start playing and, take it from there.
How about the others?
Street clothes.
Street clothes out for a month, right? Anthony Davis had one of the great first halves in NBA history. That is not an overstatement. That is not hyperbole. He had one of the great first halves in the history of the sport. And then in the second half, he left with an injury and he's out for a month.
Non-contact injury. Blew his
abdomen
groin out. Yeah, his
abdomen. How do you do that? Turning left. Like he turned right and he's like, I'm done. Yeah, street clothes. Check, please. Out for a month. After he had been yelling to the crowd like, I'm here, and it's a big moment for him. He got traded in the Luka deal. People in Dallas don't want him there. It sucks. But now you're out for a month. Like, if you're a Mavericks fan, you're just like, are you – and Luka's going to score like 40 tonight, and they're going to dominate, and he's going to look great.
And I think Brian Burke always said, you can't make trades based on fan reaction because then you'll be sitting up with the fans or something like that was his quote. But – to think of that response, which is completely nuclear by the Mavs fans, like if you thought of that, maybe isn't that reason not to pull the trigger on the trade? Like people were with coffins outside of the building saying, "He's not fat. Bring him back."
Yeah.
Dude, that
What
was
a
the
chant.
chant.
What a
He's
chant.
not
What a
fat.
chant.
Bring him back.
That's crazy.
You're right. It is the entertainment business in the end. And like marketing counts for something, ticket sales, I get it. I want you to be ruthless. I appreciate the ruthless, attitude. But street clothes is literally going to be in street clothes now for a month. And what do you think you're getting out of him for the rest of this deal? How is the rest of the team going to respond? How does the market respond? Luka's back. It's L.A., which makes it so much worse. We said that when it happened. They didn't trade him to Charlotte. They didn't trade him to the Raptors or so. They traded him to the Lakers. And there was a report today, apparently LeBron's camp is already bent out of shape about something that the Lakers are catering to Luka. This is going to get so good. Because you just know LeBron is not going to handle it well. He's not going to accept that Luka's the man. He's not
There's
going
already
to.
been one headline. It's only on Twitter, and it's from L.A., but it's like, this is not LeBron's team anymore. It's Luka's.
Oh, no.
No, that's
Oh,
coming.
yeah.
And
Dude,
there
that's out there.
An ESPN report today that LeBron's camp noticed that the Lakers were moving picks around for Luka, and LeBron wanted them to do that, and they wouldn't do it for him. It's going to be unbelievable theater moving forward. All right, hour 2 coming up. Dan Patrick will join us. Overdrive continues. TSN 1050 and on TSN 4.